This is the fascinating part of ministry. It's not about what we do for the Lord, it's what the Lord does for us. Because many times we think that somehow God needs us so badly that if we just step out of ministry, everything's going to collapse. That is foolish thinking. Actually, we need the Lord more than anything else. And in that posture of dependence on Him and of ministry, He is able to do the best in our lives and for our lives. And I was blown away.
Welcome back to Ministry Reimagined. This episode was one of the most interesting ones I've ever made. It was a great reminder that if in everything we do in our lives and our careers is not centered around God, it's meaningless. Hi, how are you doing?
Very good. How are you doing, Celeste? Good to see you.
Good. I'm very excited because as long as I've known you, how long have we, since birth, right? Well, since my birth.
I believe so, yes. Yes, some about 20 years, I guess.
20 years, yeah. As much as I know about you and your story, I don't think I never would have had this conversation or this opportunity to talk to you if it weren't for, this podcast. So I'm very excited. Yes. How do you feel? Do you feel excited, overwhelmed?
I'm excited because I love to talk about ministry and not just ministry, but it's a walk. It's a relationship, and somehow when you have an opportunity to share that story of your life, it is fascinating because it reminds you of the journey that you have been on.
Yeah. I think, as you said, it's important through these conversations because they let you take a step back, which is why this banner is up there. Why do you think it's important to take a step back?
I think we forget the past, and many times past can be painful, and we don't want to go there. But even those painful moments, if you are able to fuse them together and send them to a prism of a future goal that God may have for your life, you make sense of the journey that you're on. And I think many times we lose our purpose in life because we're not going too often back to the past and see those experiences we have had. And I'm sure many times we do things that probably have sabotaged our journey, and yet through that, God has still managed to shape it and form it in a way that leads us to the ultimate goal of our lives. I like to get those moments, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to be able to recount the way that God has led us in the past.
That's awesome. I'm really excited for this conversation. So first, let's have you. How would you introduce yourself to someone that you're just meeting?
I'm not sure exactly what would be the best way, but I'm just a pilgrim on a journey, I would say. I know the goal, I know the final destination, I just don't know the way there, and I'm just trying to find that way through a relationship that God has offered in my life. So. Maybe that's the way that I would paint my life.
So let's take a step back.
Sure.
Walk us through your the beginning of your life and how your life in ministry even started.
Sure. I was born in a very small town in a very small country, the country of Bulgaria. It's right above Turkey and Greece. It's probably half of the size of the state of Tennessee, so nothing elaborate, about 6 million people population. Adventist church was not very popular, and most of the activities needed to happen underground. So that, to a great extent, created a very interesting lifestyle, at least for a child. Because of our religious convictions and Sabbath observance, very early on I realized that I'm different. I'm the black sheep of the school, and so somehow that probably left a permanent mark on my life and has created certain habits and forms of reaction that otherwise I wouldn't have had. But because of that constant struggle and constant opposition, you have to stand your ground, and many times you just have to do it a little bit more aggressively than otherwise. But I think those early moments and my faith and the faith of my family have shaped to a great extent my personality, the way that I see life and perceive life. Those were the early days. My father was a minister, a pastor, so in a small town that creates a lot of visibility, probably unwanted visibility. I had to contend with a lot of nicknames that were not very pleasant during my childhood, which I'm sure left some scars on my life. And to a great extent, he had to endure persecution from teachers, school leadership, constant threats, some physical abuse.
Wow.
And so it was a very difficult journey, maybe psychologically and physically, but spiritually somehow I knew that this is the way, that this is something that was much bigger than even my father was able to understand and imagine. And so early on in my life, I realized that I need to serve. I did not want to serve in the capacity of a pastor. That was a no-no.
Why?
I lived the life of a pastor's son, and so I didn't want to live that life again.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an interesting combination between recognizing and wanting to serve, but not in that capacity of a minister, of a pastor. And so I think, and probably later on I can recount a little bit more about that, but I fought it all my life until a few years ago. So that call specifically to minister as a pastor, I always imagined myself as a missionary, as a teacher, but never wanted to think about myself as a pastor. So just a lot of pressure from the church, a lot of pressure from the society, and you just feel alone. You feel like nobody understands what you're going through. And so but God has His own ways and His own plans, and so taking a step back, I think, helps you to see that God is the best manager in the world, not just the Father, but He manages our lives in ways that we have never know why.
I always wonder when people, especially when they grow up in the church and they grow up believing, do you remember the point that made you realize you wanted to work in ministry and make that like the part of your life?
Yes. I was 7 years of age, and I was reading all these missionary stories that somehow got to Bulgaria through the Iron Curtain. They were translated, and I was just absolutely, devouring them. To me, this was so inspirational, especially stories from the country of India. It just inspired me so much, and I was like, I know that God wants me to be a missionary, and yet on the back of my mind, I was hearing that voice, you're going to be a pastor. And so at that moment I said, no, I'm not going to be a pastor, but I would love to be a missionary. So even in a 7-year-old mind, very, very basic mind, there was that struggle. What exactly type of mission work, but not so much where the mission work. I knew it. At that stage of my life, I knew that I was going to do so. And what is interesting is several times before that, my life was spared. So I should not have been here today and doing this little podcast and conversation. But had it not been for that protective hand of God that you sometimes see and sometimes you don't, but I saw it. And my parents told me a few instances before I was even born, that that God really spared my life. And yes, there's always a purpose, but it seemed in my life that somehow there's a bigger picture than just being an engineer or a doctor, which is probably another side story of that. Taking a step back, I always wanted to be a medical missionary. Basically, I wanted to be a medical doctor, a surgeon, and be on the mission field. I wanted to combine both of those things together. So my dream of being a surgeon just died 5 years ago. Wow. So and again, we may just touch a little bit on that, but it's fascinating to see how God leads. So
why did that dream die 5 years ago?
Why did it die? Because I wouldn't let it die. For all these years, I struggled. I felt like I have the skills. It was interesting. Just probably going back a little bit to understand how this all happened. I would say right after I graduated from high school, communism fell at that time, and so all of a sudden the opportunities open. You could exit Bulgaria, you could go to different countries. Of course, you have to have the means to be able to do that, but all of a sudden the opportunities were there. And so my dream was really to go to a medical school and become a surgeon in Bulgaria. And so I studied for a couple of years, took private lessons, really invested in biology and chemistry. That was my dream. And I went to those entrance exams, and I got a C on my biology, and I got an F on my chemistry. And I was gutted because I knew that I have done much better. In Bulgaria, it's not really by merit, it's by connections. And so what you do on your entrance exam doesn't really matter if you don't know anyone. And so I was heartbroken. I still remember walking back, just looking at the list of names and my scores. I was walking back to the bus station, and I was not in tears on the outside, but on the inside I was broken. And I was like, Lord, why are you doing this? What's the point of this? I knew I did so well. I should have had at least B, if not an A on chemistry, and biology should have been better. But somehow, why did you allow this? And so, because I didn't get into the university, I had to go to the military for a year and a half. It was a mandatory service. And so I was determined that after I get out of the military, I'm going to go back and try into a medical school. And so right after I got out of the military, I was so pumped up. I was so excited. My mom is picking me up from the train station, and as we're getting back home, and I'm opening the trunk. I mean, it's so vivid that I'm just remembering it still today. I'm opening the trunk to pick up my bag, and I'm like, now I can get a few months off, and I can get ready again, and maybe try my luck to one of the schools in the United States, medical schools in the United States. And my mom says, well, they are going to appoint you to be a pastor starting October 1st. And this is September 15th. I'm getting out of the military. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I did not give my consent for this. I did not ask for this. I don't know what you're talking about. And my mom is telling me, well, they're just inviting you, and you can say yes or no. And I get back home, and my dad is like, well, you can't say no to God. And this guilt trip, it happens sometimes. Parents mean well, but they just have ways to disrupt our lives and change our perspective on God. But I was like, Lord, how can you do that to me? I just need a little bit of a breather. I need to really gather my thoughts. For a year and a half, I have been just rattled in this environment, really foul environment, and I just, after 10 days of prayer, I just felt like I have to accept the call, and I did. October 1, I was in Sofia, actually in your parents' church. Parents' church. Yes, that's where I was stationed, and so my journey began. The journey that I never wanted.
Yeah.
The journey that I always fought, and somehow God says, "Nope, that's where I want you." And I'm afraid that if I let you do something else, you'll never go back to it. And I truly believe that would have happened. So God ambushed me, and I'm grateful. Today I'm grateful. I wasn't grateful for the last Well, it was until I was 48, so I was fighting it. But anyway, that's kind of the beginning and the dynamic there.
So you don't regret accepting the call to be a pastor?
I cannot imagine doing something better than this. I'm recognizing more and more with every passing day that every other line of work is so meaningless. And don't get me wrong, I still love medicine. When I go to a hospital, I feel at home for whatever reason. It just, the smell, the whole environment, the people, the scrubs and all that. It just makes me feel at home. It just comes very natural when I see somebody suffering, and especially having some kind of ulceration, or I'm eager. It just draws me, and I would like to help, but somehow all of these things are temporal, and just doing something of the magnitude of the eternal dimensions that God is offering us to do. It's overwhelming. It's fascinating, and I am so grateful that God stuck with me, because had I been God and I had someone like me just tagging along and being so rebellious and so ungrateful, I would have probably let them go. I mean, if you don't want to do something, you just don't do it. But God just stuck with me, and He just pressed on, and somehow He has a lot of patience, bigger than mine. So yeah, but.
So if you met somebody now that's in the same place where you were all those years ago, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to give it one more year and see how it's going to turn out. Number one. And number two, take a step back. Just look at how your life has been put together up to this moment. Because many times when you look back, we see the picture. We see the big picture. It's almost impossible not to, unless we somehow choose not to. If we ignore certain things. But even then, at 19, when I came out of the military, I knew that. I mean, looking back, I knew exactly what's happening. It was all making sense. I just didn't want to accept it. So between those of just allow God a little bit more time. Just don't do it as yet. You may do it later on, but just don't do it as yet. And then look back and see how He has led you up to this moment. And if it doesn't make sense, just walk away. But if it all makes sense, I have seen too many people that were pastors, got to that point in their lives and their journey where they just got disappointed or depressed or disillusioned, and they just stepped away from ministry. And I have talked to them, and they're absolutely heartbroken, because they knew that they shouldn't have ever done it. Nothing that they're doing right now makes sense. It doesn't give you any satisfaction. And I'm not putting down the work that everybody else does, but ministers, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. Everybody has a calling, but if your calling is to be a minister in whatever capacity, to do any kind of ministry in whatever capacity, I think you should never be doing something else. You'll never be happy. You'll never find true joy and satisfaction in life. I love construction. And maybe we'll touch a little bit later on that, what God did and how God kind of changed the trajectory of my emotional experience. But somehow, I'm grateful that, and I have given up several times. The truth is that I have given up several times. It was my second year of ministry. I was in a very small church in Bulgaria. They sent me right after Sofia. I mean, just a lot of young people. I mean, it really just a good social life. And by the way, I was recounting this to Elizabeth a few days ago. The only time in my ministry where I really had fun was the first year and a half, when I basically spent the time with your father. We had a lot of fun. A lot of young people did a lot of evangelistic work and missionary work. And so those were the fun years of my ministry. Really, I mean, out of 24 or 5 years, those were the fun years of my ministry. And right after that, they sent me to a very small church in the middle of nowhere. And after 6 months, I was done. I packed my bags and I left. I went home. I really went home. And I told the head elder that I'm going home for a month, but I knew I'm not coming back. And it was one morning after, and I actually started waxing floors, because that was something that I knew how to do well. And so I was like back to my old life, making much more money than I was making as a pastor. And it was about 3 weeks into that. One morning I was praying in my bed, and I hear the voice of God, literally like I hear your voice, says, what are you doing here, Elijah? And I'm like, wow. It just blew me away. I was just absolutely stunned. And I packed my bags, and my parents like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going back to my church, because I just can't run away from this. This is apparently, it is so important to somebody else. It's not important to me, but it's very important to someone else. And so I went back, and in my last church in Texas, I stayed there for 15 years. And I would say that 3 or 4 times I was ready. The first time, actually, I started studying biology and chemistry. Once again, I started attending community college. The conference knew about that, and they allowed me to do it and allowed me a 1 year for transition. And so I started taking classes. I was super excited. I love chemistry. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know why. I just love chemistry. And so I was super excited that I'm back into this. And so one evening, it was about 11 o'clock, and I was doing my homework, chemistry homework. I had to go to classes the following day, do my sermons and all that stuff. And I hear the same voice says, so why are you doing all these things? You're wasting your time. And it was the middle of the semester, right? And so I closed my chemistry books, and I never opened them again. Because again, I knew that this is serious. At least to him, it's serious. For me, it might not be, but for him, it's extremely serious. And so I need to take it seriously. And so I guess that's a long answer to your question. What would you tell someone? Or just stick with it and look back and see what the big picture is, because there is a big picture. We just see the day, we see the week, we see the month. But if we look at the whole the whole tapestry of our lives, it usually makes perfect sense.
That's really good.
So
I'm just curious how, because from your dream of being a surgeon and chemistry, how did you get to construction?
Well, from very little, a young boy, I grew up at construction sites, church construction sites. So we built a couple of churches in the small city of Tchakarov, not because we needed 2 churches, but the government stopped us in the middle of the first project, and we had to take everything down apart and move it to a different location and rebuild the whole thing. So I was with my dad just all day long. I mean, like a little kid, just running around helping, and so we had to construct our own house after we finished building the church. So again, I was around construction sites, and I was just fascinated with putting things together, making a house out of sticks. And
That's funny.
but anyway, I love construction, and later on, it's so funny. I mean, you asked that question, but it's so interesting that nothing in our lives that we have been exposed to or interacted with is random. It always has a bigger purpose. And so I never thought that my construction experience as a little kid is going to come to fruition. And later on, during my time in Texas, at the Grand Prairie Church, we had to build a church, and those skills actually came to a lot of use. And so God always makes sense, but later on, not now.
It's never on our timing.
Actually, it's good that it's not on our timing.
Why?
Because our timing is selfish. His timing is selfless, and I don't think that we grasp that concept. It's just impossible. We're just so bent and so twisted that almost always, even with our most pure motives, we're always looking from a very selfish perspective. So just...
In your career, what's been the most memorable part for you?
The last year at the Grand Prairie Church, that was the mountaintop of my life. And if you allow me, I can just share a little bit with you my Grand Prairie chapter, which was, again, 15 years. And as a pastor's kid, I'm not used to sticking around for a very long time. We just move. And so I have never lived in a place for many years, right? And even now, I mean, it's just like it's moving all the time, right? And so I was fresh out of the seminary, 2005, and I said, Lord, and I had a struggle at the seminary with God again about pastoring. I said, Lord, I would like to be a teacher. I wanted to do my PhD. I said, Lord, I want to be a teacher, or I want to go as a missionary, but I don't want to go back to pastoring. That's a no-no. And so it was one February day. I was about to finish my classes, and a friend of mine that you probably know, Evgeny Kovachev, he's like, why don't you go and interview at Texas Conference? They're here. And I'm like, just forget it. I don't want to be a pastor. Why would I interview for a position that I have no interest in? It just doesn't draw me at all. And he's like, they do church planting and it's fun. I mean, just go for the fun of it. You don't have to really be serious about it. And I'm like, okay, I'll just go. And so I go to the room and I see the guy inside, and I'm like, hey, no, I'm sorry. I went to the office and I said, listen, I would like to get on the list to get an interview at Texas Conference. And they're like, well, the list is full, so sorry, we just can't. They said, but if you go and you talk to the guy that does the interviews, he might have an opening, right? So I just go and I see a guy standing all dressed up in front of the door, and I knock on the door, and the guy is by himself, and I'm like, hey, just wondering if you have any time slot that you can get me in. And he's like, well, you can come right now. And I'm like, well, I'm not dressed. I'm just jeans and I'm just t-shirt. And I mean, I can see that the guys out there, they're dressed up for an interview. I'm not. It's like, no, just come on in. And I'm like, well, okay. I mean, it doesn't hurt. I don't really care about this, so it doesn't matter what happens, right? So we sit down, and after 10 minutes, he's like, well, you're coming to Texas. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, I'd like you to come to Texas. I have a church plant for you and he was the church planting coordinator, right? So I have a church for you. And I'm like, no way. He's like, I'd like to meet your wife. Can you come tomorrow at such and such time and with your wife, and we can just... And I'm like, I'm getting out of there. You know those things that happens in your mind. It's like you're hallucinating. You know what you're doing, but you don't know what you're doing. It's kind of a subconscious, daydreaming, just walking, half awake, half sleeping. And so I was like, no way, I didn't do this. I mean, this is crazy. I don't want to do this. Why would I even go to this interview? And so I'm like, how do I even break this to Elizabeth? Because she knows I'm not serious about this. And so anyway, later on in the day, I just told her, and she's like, so are you serious about this? And I'm like, I don't know if I'm serious about this, but it seems like somebody's serious about this. Somebody is. So she's like, well, let's just go together. Let's see what happens, right? So we go there, and he's like, guys, I love what you're doing. I love your attitude. I love your passion for ministry and stuff. I would like to hire you. I mean, you're just coming. And I'm like, and you can actually start in a few months. And I'm like, no way. What's going on? And so Boyan in Evgeny that interview did not get the call. That were serious about this and wanted to go there, they did not get the call. I wasn't really thinking about this. I didn't want it, and God is calling me. I'm like, this is weird, Lord. This is just crazy. What are you doing? And so I went through several weeks of just mental turmoil, and so later on, it wasn't that church. He calls me. He said, "Well, I'd like to send you to another church, which is not a church plant anymore, and it's further in the countryside." And I said, "Listen, I don't know anything about any of those churches, so if this is God's will, just let it be." And so a couple months later, he calls me again. He says, "Well, not that church, another church, which is in the middle of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, right, in the Metroplex. It's an older church," he said, "but yeah, I think you're going to do very well and all that." And good salesman, very good salesman. And so I was like, yeah, if that's what God wants me to do, wherever he wants me to go, I'm going to do it. And by the way, this is kind of a thing in my life that I don't make up my mind for something. I don't picture myself in a certain, if you tell me where do you see yourself in the next 5 or 10 years, I'm not going to even try and attempt to think about it. To me, it's more of a day-to-day just walk. I mean, God says do this, and God says go there, and you just do it. And so that was my philosophy even then. And I was like, Lord, if you want me to do that, I'm just going to go wherever you ask me to go. Well, January 5, 2005, we pack, we go, and I'm confronted by a church that is over 100 years old, dead as it can be, absolutely demoralizing and depressing. And by February, I'm already out. I'm like, this is not real. You're just destroying me as a person. I have no desire to. I wanted to church plant, and you're just giving me this. You're just giving me this dead church. What are you doing, Lord? And he said, well, stick with this. If you told me that I'll be there for 15 years, I'd have said you have lost your mind. You have no idea what you're doing. I'm not staying here for 15 years. But what happens in my life, Celeste, and I have seen it, and I'm fascinated with that. God reveals one layer at a time, as much as you can handle, and then another layer and another layer. Because if He does the whole thing at the beginning, we're going to be overwhelmed. We're going to be scared and frightened and confused, and we're just going to run away. And so it was just baiting me, because I love construction and real estate. That's my passion. And so after 6 months, I'm looking at this church, and I'm like, this thing is just falling apart. It's in the wrong place of town. We cannot do ministry here. And so I started looking for properties. 6 months, I'm like, I got to find something that is interesting and I'm excited about, so I can stay here. Otherwise, I cannot stick here. And so I started looking for properties. They had a building committee that nobody knew exactly why they have that building committee, because they were building nothing. I went to the list and I said, why do you guys have building committee? What are you building? He said, we don't know. And I'm like, well, let's just get together. And so anyway, we started buying properties. We bought 3 properties over 6 years of time. We did 3 architects. We went through 3 architects, and God says, it's not the time yet to build. It's not the time yet to build. And so I'm like, okay. All right, so you're just keeping me here. You're just baiting me here. And so 2011 is the story that I mentioned to you. I started actually going back into the medical school, medical arena of life, and that's when God says, no, we're not doing this, and you're just sticking with this. And so I kept going. In 2015, we started building, and so that's when I really truly blossomed, and I was super excited because I was doing something that I was enjoying. I could see a dream of mine to build for God something beautiful. I truly love churches that are buildings that are truly, how should I say, appropriate for God. They might not be big, but I like to see that somehow for our homes, we do our very best. We invest our very best. We borrow money. We go into debt to make them beautiful and attractive. And then we go to our churches, and it's the house of the Lord, and we just do a beat up shack where you go to the bathroom and you can't. I mean, you can't find toilet paper, and the paper holder is not working, and the carpet stinks, and the pews are wobbly, and I'm like, you're not gonna let this happen in your house. Why are you doing it with the house of the Lord? And so this was kind of a dream of mine where it was just coming together, and it was much more elaborate than I ever believed. I mean, we were a very little bitty church. We undertook a project of a magnitude that a church of 1,000 people should have undertaken, to that extent, and we were just 120 people. So it was just ridiculous. But God somehow had that vision, and he was like, I'm going to make it bigger than what you can imagine. You think big? I mean, I think way bigger than you. And so God truly did something fascinating. So because of the contractor, I'm going towards answering your question. I'm sorry, it's kind of long, but it's going to set up what that last 9 months of this journey were. And so I had a contract with God. Seriously, and it's kind of weird, but that was my mindset. I said, I'm going to finish building this church, and I'm out of ministry. Okay, I'm going to stick with you. You brought me here for this purpose, and you baited me. You dragged me through this for 15 years. I'm going to stick with this. But after I'm done with this church, I'm out. I cannot see myself being a pastor when I'm 60 years old. I cannot retire as a pastor. I just can't. Lord, just understand, I can't. And so the Lord said, sure. Well, one day it was a Friday afternoon, and I'm like, Lord, I'm going to finish building this church, but then I need a sabbatical, and I have no money saved, so how am I going to survive here? I mean, it's just like, this is real life. I mean, United States of America, it's not Bulgaria where you can go and live with your parents for a year and just be on their financial support. And so I'm like, how is this going to happen? And so I was by myself, humongous building, just incredibly humongous building. I'm by myself, Friday afternoon, working, and I'm like, Lord, when are we going to finish this? I'm tired. My body's tired. I can't do this any longer. And I know that after a couple of years, I'm going to be done with this. And who's going to take care of me? Who cares about me? Nobody cares about me. I'm here by myself. Who cares about me? And so at this very moment, when I'm with those thoughts, painting on a ladder up in the air, a truck comes and just stops in front of the church. A guy comes out that never came to ever see the church building project. A member of the church. But he never came. He never showed up. This is Friday afternoon. He comes, stops his truck. He comes to me. I come off the ladder. I'm like, James, what's going on? And James is like, Pastor. And he just extends his hand. He has something in his hand. He greets me. He wants me to take whatever is in his hand. And he says, Pastor, I just want you to know that somebody cares.
No way.
And he just walks away. Even until today, I don't know if this was him or was an angel. I don't know. And he has a $50 gift card from Walmart.
Shut up.
And he's just doing this, and I'm like, and I'm just starting to cry. And a voice comes, the same voice that has been throughout my life says, I just wanted you to know that somebody cares. That was it. And I'm like, wow. It just blew me away that this was, I mean, somebody read my thoughts, Celeste. And to me, this is the fascinating part of ministry. It's not about what we do for the Lord, it's what the Lord does for us. Because many times we think that somehow God needs us so badly that if we just step out of ministry, everything's going to collapse. That is foolish thinking. Actually, we need the Lord more than anything else. And in that posture of dependence on Him and of ministry, He is able to do the best in our lives and for our lives. And I was blown away. Shortly after that, and on that same day, I was on the ladder, and He said, same voice, You finish building this church, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to give you a sabbatical. I'm going to give you time off. But finish this church, building this church. And so I said, okay, you got a deal. We have a contract. I'm going to finish building this church. I'm not going to be a pastor anymore. You're going to take care of me at least for a year, just to get my bearings together, because I'm just beat up. I'm just worn out. Being a pastor, I did not take any vacation. I did not take any days off, anything. I mean, every single day you work about 12 to 15 hours physically, manually at the church building. And then you got to go do visitations on the weekends. You got to do your sermon on Friday night. And it was just, I was just completely done and finished. I was like, you got a deal, Lord, but I'm still dreaming about medical work. And so one day, again, I guess up in the air is where God talks to me the most. And I always try to imagine my life. I don't know if that has ever happened to you, but where you imagine yourself in a certain calling position in life. I mean, like, what would I look like if I am in this vocation or that vocation? Well, I've always tried to imagine what's going to be in my life like a doctor, a medical doctor, a surgeon, right? I mean, that has been on my mind always. And so I guess one day I was up in the air again on a scissor lift, and I was like, man, what would have been like for me to be a surgeon? Right now I'm a pastor, and look at me. I mean, I'm just like dirty clothes. I mean, I'm just sweating here. I mean, hot church by myself. I was by myself again. I'm doing all this work, and it's like, what would have been for me? And that same voice said, okay, you want to know what your life would have been as a surgeon? And it's just like, those things get your attention. And he's like, you would have been extremely successful. And forgive me for saying that. I'm just repeating what I heard. I don't know what it would have been, but you'd have been a world-renowned surgeon, but you would have been alone, without a family, extremely rich, and very miserable. And I'm sitting on that scissor lift, and I'm like, I'm just like bawling again. I'm just crying, and I'm like, wow. It just blows your mind because you see, it was not just the audible part of it. It was the visual. He managed to do it in a way that I saw it visually, what my life would have been, the wreckage of my life, the success, and the wreckage / my life would have been had it. And so I saw it. And it's almost like God took it out with a vacuum cleaner once and forever. Do you understand that since then, that's about 6 years, 7 years, it has never entered my mind. God settled it. God just put it down and said, okay, listen, I'm going to settle this once and forever. I would like you to know what your life is going to be. You want to know? I'm going to let you know. I'm not going to do that for everybody, but for you, I'm just choosing to do that. And so be it. And so I was like, Lord, thank you. I had so much gratitude, and such a weight lifted up off my shoulders. But at that point of time, I still didn't want to be a pastor. I didn't want to be a surgeon anymore. I didn't want to go into the medical field anymore, because I realized that God protected me, saved me from a sure, how should I say, collapse in terms of relational collapse in my life. Maybe a lot of success in terms of vocation, but in terms of the relationships, I would have been just miserable man. And so, but still, ministry was on my mind. And it was probably several months later. It was January of 2018. I was praying again, and God, in my prayer, God is like, so when are you going to let it go? When are you going to surrender? And I'm like, Lord, I know I have to let this go. And I said, Lord, I don't want to be a pastor, but if you want me to be a pastor for the rest of my life, I'll do it. That was the first time, 2018, January, I said, okay. It just lifted up a weight. And by the summer of that year, 2018, we were able to finish the fellowship hall of the church. That was my contract, right? We had the shell of the sanctuary, but we didn't have money for it. The sanctuary hall, the fellowship hall was, and I said, Lord, I have done my work. I'm out of here. And the Lord said, no, you're not finished. You got to finish the whole thing. And I'm like, we don't have money. Well, we had money. Somebody came and they said, well, we're going to offer you to pay you double. Just stay.
Wow.
You're going to get a salary as a pastor, and we're going to give you a second salary. Just stay for another few months, 9 months to a year, and finish this. I'm like, no, I'm not going to take a second salary. This is ridiculous. No, absolutely. Just get that money to the church building project. But I'm going to do my best. And I wasn't able to do it. I mean, I would catch a 2x4 with my arms. My hands could not just, they were so tired. I could not just do it anymore. And I said, I can't promise I'm going to run to the end with this, but I'm going to push and go as far as I can. And it's almost like God gave me a supernatural power to keep going for another 9 months. Well, those were the 9 months, and here's the answer to your question, really. Those were the best 9 months of my life. I was literally asking God, and He was answering. I was literally just talking to Him, and He would answer. And I want to get that back. It's so funny that when you have tasted something in life, especially relationally, you can't imagine life without it. And when you lose it, or you don't have it as much, you're like, what can I do to get it back? It was fascinating. God was just doing things that was just blowing the minds of everybody in terms of finances, in terms of how people were participating, in terms of the dynamics with the conference, and so on and so forth. And so I remember 8th of June of 2019, right before we got our occupancy permit. On Sunday we would have a wedding ceremony. And so the whole previous week we had to literally work 24/7. So we would go and work there with several people from the church, and you would just sleep for 45 minutes down on the floor, get up and keep going, because you have a wedding on Sunday. You got to finish that. You just can't. And so Friday evening comes, and the inspector from the city shows up, and he's looking at everything, and I'm putting carpet down. I'm laying carpet down, carpet tiles. He's like, I'm going to give you the occupancy permit, but I don't think you're going to be finished by tonight, so you can have worship here tomorrow. He's like, it's up to you, but I don't think you're going to finish. And so it was so interesting. We had organized the whole church to come and move chairs from the fellowship hall to the sanctuary in the evening around 8 o'clock. Sunset was around 8:30. And so I'm putting tiles around 8 o'clock, and all these people are just bringing chairs inside into the sanctuary. And this kind of feeling that this is supernatural, that you're living a double reality, literally. I was sensing that something unusual is happening in that building. And you might think that I probably am imagining, or something's wrong with my psyche, but it is palpable. You can feel it. It's impossible not to. So it was 8:15, and I was putting the last tile. There were a couple of rooms, like a mother's rooms, on the back of the sanctuary, but there was no glass. And so I'm putting a couple of tiles, that just finishing off everything. And so I'm hearing that same voice, and that same voice that has been throughout my life, and it says, hey, this is enough. You've done enough. Now sit back and relax. And I got up. And the moment I got up, you remember that passage in the Bible where it says that when they finished building the sanctuary, the glory of God filled the sanctuary. The presence of God really filled the sanctuary. I literally felt how that presence filled that building. Literally felt how it filled that building. And I was just standing after a whole week of just sleeping 40 minutes every 24 hours and so on and so forth. Just completely exhausted, just sitting back and just looking at the choir and the kids just putting together instruments and just playing. And I'm just like, Lord, I don't want to leave this place. I cannot imagine anything better than this presence at that moment that that was kind of the climax of my life, and still is the climax of my life. That Friday night was truly the climax of my life, because I met God. I mean, you know, when you meet an exceptional person in your life, it's pretty memorable. When you meet the King of the universe, it's unforgettable. I mean, it just can never. Yeah, and so everybody left. I mean, all the rehearsals and everything was gone. Everybody was just, super excited. I mean, it was just jubilation after so many years, 15 years. Just imagine, we have been waiting for 15 years for that moment, right? And so me and Elizabeth went up. We had a pretty extensive balcony. We went on the very top. It didn't have any pews on the balcony yet, only chairs on the bottom. And so we sat over there. We sat until 11:30. I'm like, I know that I haven't written my sermon for tomorrow. That's the opening sermon, and I haven't even written it. But I told Elizabeth, I don't want to leave. I just want to stay here. I want to just be in this presence as long as I can be. And so we stayed until 11:30. We left at 11:30 because I knew I had to get ready for the following day. And then the following day we had a lot of guest people come and say, like, I don't know what's about your church, but it's like there is a presence here that we have never felt before anywhere else. I'm like, I'm not the only one that that feels it. I mean, it's just another affirmation. And so that was the mountaintop of my life, truly, because I met God. I did not see him in his physical dimensions, but his presence was so palpable that it was just impossible to ignore. And so I'm trying to get back that presence in my life, and I want it every day. And that's what ministry gives you. It gives you that a little edge to claim that you want to have that extra closeness to God. To me, that's what ministry is about. Not that everyone is not able to do that, but you almost like you're saying, Lord, I like that because of our relationship. It's not just a personal, but it's also work relationship as well. So can you do a little bit more? Can you come a little bit closer? And I'm telling you, there's nothing that you can give me in this life to substitute that. There's that experience alone in my life has been absolutely fascinating, and God stuck with his contract. He provided for us for another 4 years, not 1 year. I wanted 1 year of sabbatical. He gave me 4 years of sabbatical, and he provided financial. People were just laughing at us. You're going to be moving to Tennessee. You don't have a job. Elizabeth doesn't have a job. And you're going to put your kids in a private school? You're nuts. What are you doing? And God said, no, you're going over there, and I'm going to provide for you. And he truly stuck. And my money ran out. Do you know when? The moment I started work here at this conference. It was right to the dot. 4 years. God said, okay, it's time to go. Money's out. So you're going back to ministry. And so I'm delighted. The churches that I'm at right now are not perfect. It's not what I would have wanted. Actually, the person that hired me said, I'm so sorry. It feels like a demotion. I'm like, you don't understand. It's not a demotion. It's where I need to be. And if this is where my God is, I want to be where my God is. And it doesn't really matter. The location, it's irrelevant. I mean, the community of believers is irrelevant. It's where he is at work. And if I'm there, you can't get me out of there. I mean, it's just like, yeah, it hasn't been easy, but I know that he is there, and I want to see him and sense him more than I am. And maybe there are certain things in my life that God wants to change before he reveals himself to me once again. I think it's more of a overtime tuning up. It's not something that happens instantaneously. So you flip a switch and you say, well, I want to be closer to you today. No, it's kind of a gradual build up. And so anyway, but that was the long answer to your question.
Perfect. I think it's incredible that the things that God can do if we let him. Because you said that the most memorable time of your career was the 9 months that you never even wanted. I think that's...
Can you imagine if any time during those years I stepped out of ministry, what I would have missed.
Yeah.
I could have never seen that in 2005. I could have never seen that in 92 when I was first called to ministry. I would have never seen. If God told me in 92 that I will be able to experience him in such a dramatic way, I mean, it's incredible. Just the financial side of the financial side of this whole project was tens of millions of dollars, which God really just dumped and said, I can do this through this little bitty church and through this absolutely ridiculous pastor that has no desire to do this. I mean, the most unlikely scenario that you can put together to build something like that, he just proved that it's possible. So if he can do that with someone like me and the church that I was part of, I'm telling you, the sky's the limit. Like you said, it's impossible to prevent him. Now, if you surrender earlier and faster, you'll probably be able to experience him even on a deeper and bigger level. I imagine that is the case. But now, if I have to go back, there was an interesting question that you kind of had there. Said, if you have to go back and tell someone, it's like, man, you just don't know what you're going to be missing. You can take a hike. You can just move on. But you just have no idea what you're going to be missing. Your imagination is not crazy enough to give you that aspect of what God has for you. It's just impossible. And I truly believe that we are going to see the dynamics that are shaping in our society and our world today tells me that we are going to be in situations and circumstances that will completely defy any logic, and God will reveal himself to us in ways that he has never done it in any other past time of history. So you want to see God, be on his team. And if you don't mind being a little bit on the front line, I think you're going to see even better. You're going to have a vantage view. Of course, you're going to get the first wins and the most painful blows, but you're going to see God in his beauty and in his power in ways that nothing else in this life. I mean, I have a friend surgeon, very successful. They don't have kids. He's a very good Christian, but he's looking back and he says, I have destroyed my Christian experience with God throughout those years while I was a surgeon because I just didn't have time for God. My career was much more important. It's just one of those things that I truly believe, if God is calling you to ministry, just hold on to your seat, because God is going to take you. He's going to be taking you on a ride that's going to be just fascinating. And I'm so excited about what you are doing, because I truly believe that you're challenging people like me to look back, to take a step back and to look at what God has been doing for them and where God is leading them now. Many times we just forget to do that. There's a Christian writer that says we should never fear the future unless we forget how God has led us in the past, right? And so to me, that's so powerful.
That's big. I'm gonna come back to that. Let me write that down. I think something that I've noticed that I think is kind of funny. You've been a pastor for how many years before you accepted the fact that you've been a pastor?
Probably good 17, 18 years.
That's crazy.
I mean, and I was in school for 8 years, again doing theology, and I was rebellious during that time as well. So it just, I was 48 when I truly surrendered. 48 years. It took God 48 years. I don't think any human being is going to put up with another human being for 48 years. That doesn't happen.
Very, very
it's
true.
Possible, but it doesn't happen often. So
I also think it's amazing how God uses the things that you love to help you reach for ministry.
Yes.
Because it sounds like you've had so many different, interests and occupations that you would have wanted to work in.
True.
But God still found a way to use construction in your ministry, building a whole church. He put you in a place that needed construction to help you use that for God's work, which I think is amazing.
It is. It is amazing. It is amazing. He is the best mind reader of all. So, yeah.
That's awesome. How do you view the future now with technology? Is it something we should be scared of? Is it something we should accept?
I'm fascinated with AI. I read a lot. I listen a lot about AI, and I am not a pro by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm just seeing technology as part of the great controversy between good and evil. And I believe that God is going to use it in ways that it's hard to predict how that would happen. At the same time, it seems like the forces of evil are using it in a very powerful way as well. But I truly believe that technology has a lot to offer and in help and give. I'm still trying to figure out what is the best way of using it without relying too heavily on it. I see more and more pastors basically using it as a crutch to do not just the research, but basically write the sermons. And I believe that is something that takes away the divine element in our journey. We are basically circumventing our creativity if we just go to technology and ask technology to do all the work for us. So somehow certain things that are prerogative that God has given us, which is our creativity, I truly believe, and our ingenuity and that divine element that He has placed in every human being because we're His children, right? I think it's something that we should not lose. Technology should not become a copy of our personality, right? Because I truly believe where we're going with this is cloning. That's at least my personal perspective, very limited perspective, to where they're going to be a digital Celeste that is going to be thinking like Celeste, is going to be talking like Celeste, same voice, same intonation, is going to be able to perceive things like Celeste, and so on and so forth. And so you're going to have a conversation with your double, basically, and if you need to balance ideas, balance things, and I mean, and so how is that helpful? Why not do that with God? Why not? Why substitute God with an AI? And I think that's where we have to be careful, to where we don't use it as an authority, but use it as a tool. To where I think what happens is, through Google, we got to the point to where, like, oh, I don't know any of these answers. Let me ask Google, right? Let me Google it. Well, let me ask ChatGPT right now, right? If I don't know anything. And so all of a sudden, whether the answer is right or wrong, we accept it as right, as an authoritative one. And so all of a sudden, we're just going around God. So if we need to know the will of God for our future, for the next step of our lives, well, how should I invest my money? Well, let me ask ChatGPT. Well, these are the things. I have $1,000, and I'd like to retire in next 10 years. So, what would you say? How would be the best way to invest those $1,000? ChatGPT. Here's the way, or Grog, whatever it is, right? Instead of saying, Lord, I have $1,000. What would be the best way for me to invest in for the next 10 years? What would be the best return on investment for those $1,000? And so my fear is that somehow we're getting so dependent on AI that God becomes secondary. We pray after we ask ChatGPT, or we pray when we get disappointed in ChatGPT, but we are not really asking him first. And I think that's the struggle today, at least in our society. But by all means, I think as a tool of enhancing your ministry, of helping you to develop your skills. Absolutely. Write the sermon first. Give it to ChatGPT to clear up all the to edit all the mistakes or unclear expressions and so on and so forth. By all means, I'm not saying that's but don't let the platform just basically write your sermon, because the power of God is very difficult to be revealed in that. It's just kind of almost impossible.
Interesting. So it just depends how you use it.
I truly believe. Yes.
That's good. With that, do you feel like you're getting the support you need in your ministry?
By?
Just in general, by the resources that you have available?
In terms of your leadership, pastoral work is extremely lonely profession. Extremely lonely. It's just, you're going to get a phone call probably from the conference when you're in trouble. That's about the only time that you're going to get a phone call. Other than that, probably not going to get a phone call. So that support system there is not as strong. I wish it's a little bit better, but maybe there are too few of them and too many of us, and it's hard to kind of manage. And you're always there to just put out fires instead of encourage and support. Church members usually do not get as much support because you're there to serve them, right? So the perception from the church members is pastor is here to help me, to visit me, to talk to me, to encourage me, to pray for me. But he's a Superman, so he doesn't need my help, right? So you don't expect support from there. Now, the best thing is probably to find another pastor that has similar personality and is going through similar journey, and just use that as a support system. But in general, pastoring is a very lonely calling. You remember what Elijah said? I'm the only one that is left. He was at that moment of his life, he felt like it's me and you, God. And God said, no, it's not just me and you, but in the eyes of Elijah, that was the perception that nobody else is here for me. I'm not supported by anybody. And God says, no, I'm here for you. And God revealed himself in a powerful way just to demonstrate. So I'm seeing it in my life more and more as the time draws near to, I believe, the second coming of Christ. God wants us to learn to lean on him and him alone. Because at some point of time, every human support is going to be taken away from us. It's inevitable. You see it. People are extremely selfish in general, and they're going to be your friends, and they're going to be there for you pretty much until there is mutual benefit. But the moment that is gone, very few people are going to stick with you. That's the reality of life. And so I think God is preparing us for a time where we are going to have to stand alone. Humanly speaking, alone, and we have to learn to lean on him, to talk to him, to commune with him, and it just makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. So if you could reimagine, as our title is, if you could reimagine the way that ministry is structured today, how would you do that? What would you keep? What would you...
My ministry or ministry in general?
Both.
Ministry starts with surrender. It's just impossible. In any other way, it would be a struggle. And that's the reason it was a struggle for me for 48 years. It's just as simple as that. So the sooner we are able to surrender, I think the more glorious our journey is going to be. The more we're going to experience God deeper. On a deeper level, we'll be able to experience him. Ministry is really, the word ministry is probably defined by human beings in a very flawed way, because you're not ministering to someone, you're being ministered by God, and you are basically choosing whether to become a channel of his ministry to you, to others, or you're just like a wall. Just a concrete wall that is basically, causing that resistance, presenting that resistance to his ministry, and you're not allowing for his ministry to flow through you. So again, you surrender and you become that channel of life, of ministry, of love to others, unobstructed. And the less resistance, the more the people around you experience that divine presence and divine intervention in their lives. I think that's why people say, well, churches grow to the level that their pastors have grown, right? They cannot surpass that. Well, for the simple reason that their pastors have not allowed that spiritual blessing and presence, divine presence, to come into the life of the church. And so many times pastors are not helping. So ministry has to be, again, complete and full surrender from the beginning to the end. And number two, I truly believe, Celeste, and that's the principle of my life, where everything stands or falls, is humility. If humility is not present, there is no ministry. It's a selfish ambition. I'm doing something to get something. I'm not there for God or for people. I'm there for myself. And so if those two elements, surrender and humility, are not present, ministry is just a nice label, but it's not a reality. So it was so funny, and I want to share this very quickly with you. I don't know how much time we have. I don't want to take much of your time, but it was very interesting. I wanted, at the end of this whole journey with the building project and in my stay at Grand Prairie, to finish well, because you might do wonderful things, but if you do not finish well, if you take all the credit and the glory to yourself and not give it to God, you have ruined everything. You have absolutely destroyed everything that God has done. And I purposed very early in this journey, not very early, but probably a couple of years before we finished the project, I purposed in my heart that I'd like to make sure that I finish well and that I am able to give all the glory to God and acknowledge sincerely from my heart that it is Him that did this and not me. Because it's very easy to take all the applause from people, all the compliments from people, and turn around and, like Nebuchadnezzar, say, "Is it not me that built this church?" Right? And I knew that I'm going to ruin everything, even if I think it like that, even if I never verbalize it, but it's in my mind and my heart. I have ruined everything. And so very early on, I said, Lord, I started praying basically daily, and I said, Lord, I'd like you to humble me. I'd like you to humble me. I'd like to make sure that after everything is over, I'll be able to give all the glory and honor to you. And sincerely say, I am a useless servant. You remember that's I believe Luke chapter 11, verse 27, 37. It says, you should say at the very end, I'm just a useless servant. I just did the things that I was supposed to do, right? And so to me, I wanted to do it, and it was very interesting. I left on the 30th of June for the next 4 months. I'm not going to go in any detail, but God did things that absolutely humbled me and humiliated me. And it was very painful. And Elizabeth was like, why is this happening? How is it possible that God... And I'm like, listen, this is the answer to my prayer. I asked for this. And the only way for God to humble us when we're on the top of the mountain, when it looks like you did something and we didn't do anything. Absolutely nothing. We did it because of His grace and patience and love, not because we are worthy and deserve. But it's so tempting to just turn and say, oh my goodness, look at what I did. No, we didn't. And so the only way for God to do it is to humble us. And sometimes that is painful. And that's what He did for the next 3-4 months. And I'm eternally grateful for that. I am not bitter. I'm not frustrated. I'm not disappointed. I'm eternally grateful because I was able to do it through His intervention. On my own, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So, again, going back, how do you reimagine ministry? Less visibility. Try to be invisible, not visible. I truly believe, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, I sometimes I'm just very direct about those things, but the most successful and the most amazing pastors, teachers, professors that you're going to see are not on the internet. They don't have their own channel. They're invisible. They don't want to be visible. The people that God uses are usually not self-promoting. It's just as simple as that. And if a pastor needs to do self-advertisement and it just needs to blast here and there and wants clicks and wants this and wants that, I'm afraid that's not true ministry. Because true ministry is what John the Baptist did. His disciples were like, what's going on? He's more popular than you. He's getting more views than you. What's going on? I mean, you set him up. You baptize him. Why is he taking over? And what did he say? He has to increase and I have to decrease. That's my role. My role is simply to lift him up. Nobody should see Daniel. Nobody should see Daniel. I mean, I agree to do this with you, and I don't mind doing this with you. But I don't want in this podcast people to see me. I want people to see God. And if people see me, I have failed completely miserably. My prayer before we had this, I mean, in the last few days has been, Lord, I want to lift you up. I want people to see you. I want people to know you. I want people to be enamored with you and not with anything that I do or say. And so ministry needs to become a very simple, simplistic, very elementary level, very almost invisible, to where you're just a guide that says, hey, listen, I know where the light is. Can I show you? I mean, it's pretty awesome. I mean, I know that right now you're kind of tired and worried and confused and all that, but I can help you to get there because I have seen it myself. And so our role many times in ministry is this self-absorbed, Superman, Superwoman kind of image where, oh, I know who God is, so let me just tell you who God is. Let me just tell you a little bit about Him. I mean, I know Him. I mean, I'm an insider, and we behave like we own God. We behave like God is our genie in the bottle, and we can just kind of, I'm going to pray right now, and you're going to see what's going to happen, right? And it's like, no, God in His mercy has allowed you to see Him and meet Him and experience Him. Be double humble, because it's so super incredible that you have been able to do it, but you're not different than the person next door. Just humble yourself and allow Him to use you even more. And I think the more we decrease, the more powerful He can become in front of the people that we are affecting and we're influencing. The more we are up and present and visible, the less He's able to reveal Himself. So, like my district pastor said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I know that this looks like a demotion," because he's looking at it from the perspective of, oh, you're getting two small churches that are countryside churches, and they only have 30 to 40 people each. So you're at 50, so yeah, this looks like a demotion. I mean, you're coming from a larger church, a single church district, and I'm like, you just don't get it. It's not about where you are. It's about where God is. And if He's there and He wants me to be there, I don't want to be any other place in the world. I can't imagine me going back to Bulgaria, but if God wants me to go back to Bulgaria, so be it. I can imagine right now going to a third world country, even though I wanted to be a missionary. But if God says, Daniel, you're packing your bags and you're going to Africa right now, Zambia, I'm packing my bags. I don't mind. I'm leaving this house. I'm leaving everything that I've been able to accomplish in my life. And and just following him. So
you said a lot of pieces of advice. You said, as you just said, keeping your humility and surrendering. Those two are very big things that I think a lot of people outside of the church associate the opposite with people in the church. They see them as, oh, I'm better than you because I found hope and you didn't.
Yes.
So I think that's really interesting, and I love your perspective on that. But with those pieces of advice, is there another thing that you would say to somebody that's just starting their life in ministry?
Count your blessings. You're special. With that comes a lot of responsibility, but somehow your life is fascinating, and I'm heartbroken that we don't see more and more young people wanting to go to ministry. And do you know why? I think this is because we have failed as pastors to make this calling attractive. Why did I want to become a surgeon, a medical doctor? Why? Because I saw another human being that was in that position, and it seemed like what they're doing is pretty exciting, right? Why are you doing what you're doing? Because you saw someone that did something similar, and somehow you felt like you can. I'm trying to pick up the right word, but you can associate and you can just see yourself in their shoes. Mm-hmm. Well, the very fact that young people don't want to be pastors or ministers or do ministry is because we as pastors have failed, and we have not made this calling attractive. We have done it as a job, not as a ministry. And young people are like, I don't want to be a pastor. Why would I want to be a pastor? What for? Mm-hmm. Right? Why do I want to be in ministry? What for? I think we should, as pastors, we should do everything possible to have at least several of the young people of the church say, I'd love one day, I don't know if God wants me to be, but I'd love one day to be a pastor, to be up there and to be down here and to be here and there and give Bible studies and baptize people and visit people and pray for people and so on and so forth. So anyway, but that's to me, that's one of those things that young people need to know. Listen, even though we have failed as pastors, if God has called you to be one or a minister, I'm telling you, you'll never do anything better than this in your life. Especially, I think what's coming. I think young people, and I keep encouraging. My daughter is doing theology right now, and I have shared many times with her. I said, I don't know if you're going to be a pastor like I'm a pastor right now. You're going to be in ministry, but that ministry might look completely different. You might not be even supported by the church. There might not be a church organization when that time comes. So just know that your life is going to be, riding on the high places of the earth. It's just for sure. There's no question about it. So,
do you think it has to be in the church or work for the church to be considered ministry?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I actually prefer to not work for the church.
Why?
Because the organization, to a great extent, shackles you. You don't have the freedom to express yourself as you do. You don't have a boss, right?
Yeah.
You can say anything you want to.
Yeah.
You can ask any question that you want to.
It's very nice.
And no one would ever censor you. And I think many times because of bureaucracy and structure, we get shackled and we get muzzled. We're not able to really express ourselves. So I think ultimately, at the very end, all of us are going to be independently working for the Lord. Independently from an organization is what I meant, not independent from Him.
Yeah.
It's just impossible. So
we got
anyway,
what you were saying.
Yes. So, but yeah.
That's funny. Thank you so much for your time. I feel very, even in your step back, it made me take a step back in mine. So thank you for your story. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode. One of my favorite things to do is to be able to sit down with people and talk to them about their passions and their goals in their lives and in ministry. If you liked this episode and you want to support this podcast, you can support by subscribing, commenting. Let us know what you think. We don't want the conversation to just end with us. We want to start it. You can like the video, share it with some people that you might think might like it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.